Hi guys, I've decided to make my own negative switching conversion harness for my Toyota to run aftermarket positive switched headlights. These went for $50 to $70 a pop, and I looked into it a bit. I couldn't find any information whatsoever on how to make these from scratch that was suitable to me and made it clear to me what to do. So I thought I'd make one of my own, maybe help people out, save them about $70, which is what they were going for in Australia here for one of these harnesses. So most cars, what they have in their harness is a constant earth and two switches. And depending on what switch you've selected, you get a low beam and a high beam that goes to your headlight and then goes back to the earth, and then it powers whichever one you've chosen, high beam or low beam. Now, in a negative switching car, that's reversed. You have a constant power, which goes to the headlight, but then depending on which earth you've chosen, whether it be a high beam or a low beam, that selects what setting your headlights on, high beam or low beam. And then as soon as you turn that constant power off, there's no power whatsoever, so it doesn't matter which earth you chose. The way you flip that over to put a positive aftermarket LED, positive switched LED to a negative switch circuit is you use relays. And the first step first, the power goes to two pins. It goes to both pins 86 and 30. The selector, which is the earth, goes to pin number 85. So depending on which pin you chose, whether it be high beam or low beam, whichever setting your switch is on, assuming your headlights are selected to be on, there's going to be constant power. Earth's going to be fitting through here. Let's say you select the low beam earth. That'll go to pin 85. Suddenly the relay will trigger, click, and then that will feed that constant power source through pins 30 and 86 and into pin 87. That'll feed through your headlights. Now your headlights have power. But how do you make sure they have an earth? Because you've used that earth as a trigger. What I've done is I've made my own earth, which goes from the headlight and to my selected earth point, which is mounted somewhere on the car. Now I'm not going to go to what relays do and the concept of earth. That's very basic automotive electronics and electronics in general, and I'm sure there's plenty of resources out there that are better than mine. But basically you have two relays in my circuit, one for high beam, one for low beam. These act as the switch. You have a constant source of power that's on whenever the power is on to the headlights, and these, depending on which negative switch is on, whether it be low beam or high beam, that feeds a negative. You can think of it like a negative signal to the relay, which suddenly triggers when with your power source from here, and then powers your headlight. Natural question is, well, if all the power here is off, does that mean all three switches are triggered? Well, that may be the case, but if the power source on your negative switching harness is off, then naturally, what's going to power the relay? Nothing. What's going to power the headlight? Nothing. So then nothing's going to be powered, and it'll be off like it's meant to be. As soon as you flick the power and you select low beam or high beam on your switching circuit in the dash, suddenly, depending on which negative switch you've chosen, low beam or high beam, it'll feed into the relay, and suddenly the relay will click and it'll power the headlight and it'll go to your customized earth that you've chosen. Okay, and I'll show you that proof of concept now. So that's parking light, my standard low beams, and then your high beam, low beam, off, parking light, and off again. I thought I'd show a quick idea of the other side. So there you go. The low beam and high beam inputs and then you've got the common earth, and that's your positive switching harness. But thanks to relays, we've converted that. One thing I'll mention about this, if your LEDs don't draw as much power as your stock, the blue dash light may not come on in a lot of cars, signifying when high beams are on. Very simple solution. You measure your voltage drop between high beam and low beam for your stock lens, and then with your stock halogens you can sort of work out what sort of resistance you need to add, and according to that you can add some resistors or capacitors to your circuit, so when your high beams are on, the right sort of resistance and power draw occurs through your circuit, and from there you've got your blue dash light coming on. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that's been useful.